So the last lesson we did, it was still section 7.4, but it was 7.4a, and we did a special kind of triangle. Do you remember what that special triangle was? Thank you. It's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Let's review that briefly. The 180 triangle? All triangles have 180 degrees. All right, so let's draw a 45, and I'm going to go through this. I'm going to go through it faster than when we first did it because we've already taught it. But this is a good review. Plus, it's going to help us with the next thing that we're going to do today. All right? All right, so there's a right triangle. If it's 45, 45, you're taking notes, you should be drawing this triangle down. You should have your notebook open. You should have 45, 45 written at the top, and you should have already drawn that right triangle. That's what you should be doing. I'm doing it. You should be doing it, okay? So here we go. On a 45, 45 means that both of these sides are equal to each other. If both of these sides are equal to equal to each other, that means both of these angles are equal to each other. Both of these angles add up to 90 degrees because there's a 90 degree angle here. These two add up to 90 degrees, and if they're both the same, they've got to be both 45 degrees. So there's your 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay, there's your 90 right there and your two 45s. We said something about this. The hypotenuse is 90? What do you think that means? How can a hypotenuse be 90? It could be 90 feet. It could be 90 inches. Guess it could be. But the hypotenuse... No, you're not right. So the hypotenuse... Okay, Josiah, stop. Okay, you're just messing around. That's all you're... No, you are.
Is that 45 or 95?
It's 45. I just said. They're both 45, and this is 90. That's why it's a 45, 45 degree or 90 triangle. So the hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times one of the legs. Right? This is the hypotenuse because it's opposite the what? The 90 degree angle. Okay? The hypotenuse is not 90. It's opposite the 90 degree angle. All right? And these are called your legs. Both of these legs are exactly the same. So if I made this leg 3, then what's this leg right here? It's 3. That's only when you have a 45, 45, 90 triangle. Okay? So these two legs are the same. There is a relationship between the legs and the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is the square root of 2 times one of the legs. What is the square root of 2, by the way? It's about 1.4, let's say. All right? It goes on. The decimal keeps going. It never repeats. But it's about 1.4. All right? So it's less than 1.5 times the leg, isn't it? It's definitely not twice the leg. All right? It's about 1.4. You don't really have to know that. That's not that big of a deal. But that's what the square root of 2 is. It's not a 2. Not everybody. A lot of people look at this and say, that's a 2. Well, that's not a 2. What is it? It's the square root of 2. Okay? That's the square root of 2. And what is the square root of 2? It's around 1.4. It's approximately 1.4. So that means the hypotenuse is approximately 1.4 times this leg right there. But we don't write 1.4. What do we write? We write 3 square root of 2. All right? So if I know the legs, the hypotenuse is very, very easy to find. What if they told me the hypotenuse? And what if they told me the hypotenuse was 3 times the square root of 2? What do you think the legs are? 3. How'd you get that? Watch. Let's use this formula again. This is the formula we're going to use for 45, 45, 90 triangles. Now, in a few minutes, we're going to do another kind of special triangle, and it's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. Okay? And a 30, 60, 90 triangle is going to have 2 things you're going to have to remember. 45, 45 only has 1 thing to remember. The 30, 60, 90 has 2 things to remember. We'll get to that in a few minutes. All right. So what if they told you the hypotenuse? Well, what am I going to do? I'm going to write 3 square root of 2 in for the hypotenuse. Then I'm going to put equals. Then I'm going to put what? A square root of 2 times one of the legs. If I don't know the leg, let's just call it x. And let's do the math. Everybody watching? See what I did? I just plugged everything in. I plugged in 3 square root of 2 for the hypotenuse. This has a square root of 2 in the formula, so I put it there, times one of the legs, times x. I got to solve for x. How do I get rid of x? I got to get rid of that square root of 2. What's it doing? It's multiplying by that x. How do I get rid of it? I divide by the square root of 2. Come over here, divide by the square root of 2. Those cancel. I'm left with x. These cancel, and I'm left with what? No, these cancel. I'm left with a 3. All right, so x is equal to 3. And it should. If I started off with a 3 and I got 3 square root of 2, if I was told that this was square root of 3 or 3 square root of 2, I should end up with this being a 3, correct? So if this is 3, what's this one going to be? That's going to be 3 as well. I'll give you one more. This one's a little bit more difficult. If I give you the hypotenuse as the square root with the square root of 2 in it, it actually makes it kind of easy. A lot of people freak out and they're like, oh, that's too hard, I can't do it. It's got a square root of 2 in it. It's actually pretty easy because what happens to the square root of 2's? They cancel out. All right, so it actually makes it kind of easy. This next one I'm going to show you makes it a little bit more difficult. Let's get rid of all this mess. All right, let's keep that there. All right. So what if I give you the hypotenuse as just like a regular whole number? I don't know, let's make it 10. Okay? Everybody with me? So what if I made that 10? You got to solve for x. You have to solve for one of the sides. Well, the math is the same as what we just did before, okay? Or the algebra, I should say, is the same as we did before. So you put it in this formula. What's the hypotenuse? It's 10. So we put a 10 right there. Equals what? Square root of 2 times one of the legs. What's my leg? It's x. So I put an x. It's the same math that we did before. Except the answer is going to look a little different when we got to change up the answer a little bit. So if I want to get x by itself, I divide by the square root of 2. Divide this by the square root of 2. That cancels, that cancels. Now, look what we have. We have x equals 10 over the square root of 2. Do you remember on Friday what we said about this? Can you leave your answer like this and circle it? Why not? In the bottom, right? In the denominator, okay? You can just say in the bottom. You cannot have, and math teachers came up with this a long time ago. It wasn't just teachers. I don't know. Somebody came up with it. I don't know who. But they said that you cannot have a square root in the denominator, all right? So this is not simplified. If you would circle this, okay, what would I do? Yep, there's your x, okay, not this x, but it would be wrong. And I would probably tell you, I'd probably write next to it, what? Simplify, okay? How do I simplify that? That's the question. You got it. But not just times it by square root of 2, times the bottom by the square root of 2, and what else? And the top by the square root of 2. Because look, I did that in red for a reason. What is that? Just the red stuff. Square root of 2 divided by square root of 2. It's 1. That's right. Anything divided by itself is 1. I'm allowed to multiply anything I want by 1. Would you agree? Because it doesn't change the value. It doesn't change the value at all. This just changes what it looks like. So let's do the bottom. Bottom's the hardest part. But it's kind of easy though. All right, square root of 2 times square root of 2. No, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. It's the square root of 4. It's not a 4. It's the square root of 4. What's the square root of 4? It's just a 2. It's just a 2. Listen, we went over this on Friday. Watch the video on it, okay? I went kind of detailed. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just the whole number 2. It's the square root of 4, and the square root of 4 is 2. Correct. You got it. Okay? Everybody see that? What about the top? What do I do there? Is that the square root of 20? Right. It's 10. Whoops. Make it look like a 10. 10 square root of 2. That's all you can do. Well, you're not really repeating it. You're multiplying them together, and you can't multiply a whole number times a square root, so you just put them next to each other. And now there's one more thing you can do. No, not yet. Don't circle it yet. Sorry.
So say 5 times square root of 2, it would just be 5 square root of 2.
That's it. Yeah. 5 times the square root of 2 is just 5 square root of 2. 10 times the square root of 2 is just 10 square root of 2.
Why do you do 2 square root of 2? Because that's a square.
Because this is the square root of 2. This is not a 2. Right? These are both under a square root. If they're both under a square root, this is what we're doing. Right? But these are not both under a square root. So I can't put that 10 under a square root. These both are. So what's this? What's the square root of, what's 2 times 2? It's 4. So it's square root of 4, which is a 2. Square root of 4 is 2. But look, it's a lot easier. Why this back and forth? I don't understand. I'm trying to teach you something that you don't understand. And you're not listening. So watch. Let's go through this again. Okay, I wasn't expecting to do this today, but we got some time, so I'll do it. So we said that the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is what? It's not 4. It's 2. It's right there. Okay? Look, the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 comes down to be a 2. What is the square root of 3 times the square root of 3?
3.
It's just a 3. Okay, what's the square root of 9 times the square root of 9?
9.
It's 9. What's the square root of 73 times the square root of 73?
73.
It's just 73. Okay? We did this earlier, and apparently you weren't paying attention. We're not finished this yet. What's it take? Does it take me writing you up? Here we go. So we can't circle this. Somebody said earlier, I said, what do I do now? And somebody said, circle it. The 2, right, look, this 2 and this 10, they divide into each other. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 5 or 10 5 times. So, what is this equal to? It's 5, what? Square root of 2. That is the simplified answer right there. This, I would mark wrong because it's not simplified. For instance, let's say you're doing fractions and you got something like 3 over 6 and you circled it. Would any math teacher give you credit for that? No. They would always tell you to reduce the fraction, wouldn't they? Or simplify. Probably in elementary school they wouldn't say simplify, they'd probably say reduce. Right? So you would have to reduce that to what? To 1/2. It's the same thing here. This is not reduced. This is not simplified. Okay, this is. It's a very simple process to simplify it. You just take the bottom, if it's a square root, you multiply it by itself, you multiply the top by itself. Square root of 2 times square root of 2 is just a 2. Right here, 10 square root of 2 is just 10 square root of 2. You look at the 2 and the 10, they're both whole numbers. 2 goes into 10 5 times. There's your answer. Okay? What if I had this? What if I had, 7 over the square root of 2 is one of my answers? Can I keep it like that? Can I circle it? No. What would I do? Not 2. Square root of 2. It's a big difference. 2 and square root of 2 are a big difference. All right? So I multiply the top and bottom by the square root of 2. What do I get on the bottom? What's the square root of 2 times square root of 2? No. Well, it is square root of 4. It is the square root of 4. He's right. Listen, he's right. It is the square root of 4. He's not wrong, but you got to go one more step. What's the square root of 4?
2.
It's 2. All right? So that's what you should write down. What's the top going to be?
7 square root of 2.
Right. Now, over here, we had to cancel out the 2 and the 10. Do we have to do that here? No, because 2 doesn't go into 7. All right? And so that would be your answer if it was 7 over square root of 2. You see that? All right. We're going to do a little bit more of that later, okay? But we got to get to the next triangle, okay? This was all review for the 45, 45, 90. All right? And well, 45, 45, 90. What does that 90 mean? It means there's a right angle. So yes, it has to be a right triangle if there's a 90 in there. Agreed? Okay. So now, let's do another triangle. This is the one that's new for today. Now, does this look like both the legs are equal to each other? Absolutely not. All right? But this one's still the what? This side right here. This is still the hypotenuse. How do you know that's the hypotenuse? hypotenuse? Because it's
Opposite of the right.
It's opposite the right angle. It's not because it's long, it's because it's opposite the right angle. That's why it's the hypotenuse. Now these two legs right here, they're both legs, but they're not equal to each other like it was on that other triangle. Okay? This one is shorter, so we call it the short leg. Okay? This is longer than the short one, so we're going to call this the longer leg. Or you could call it the long leg. The reason I like to say longer is because it's not the longest side, is it? If I just put long, people would look at it and say, oh, that's the longest one on there. It's not the longest side. What's the longest side of the triangle? It's always the what? It's always the hypotenuse, right? So the hypotenuse is always the longest side. Everybody got it? But I'm talking about the legs. This one and this one. This is the short one. This is the longer one. By the way, I should have done this. That's 30 degrees. And what do you think this one is up here? That's 60 degrees. Okay? How do you know that's the shorter leg? Because it's opposite what? No, the short leg. The short leg is opposite the smallest angle. Right, the smallest angle. Look, 30 is the smallest angle. Okay? Ariel, you're done with me already? Come on, we got a lot more to do. We haven't even started the new stuff. We just barely started the new stuff. Josh. Hey, Josh. Pick your head up. Let's pay attention. Come on. Write stuff down. If you're writing this stuff down, it makes it harder to go to sleep. All right, so this is the short. That's the long. That's the hypotenuse. How do I know this is the short? Because it's opposite the smallest angle. You got it? Okay. We got two things to remember. Here are the two things. And they both relate to the short side, which makes it nice. Okay? There's a certain relationship between the hypotenuse and the short leg and the longer leg and the short leg. So there's two things we have to remember compared to the 45-45. What was the 45-45? The hypotenuse was what? Equal to, on the 45-45, hypotenuse was equal to, we just finished doing it, the square root of 2. I just want to bang my head against the wall. It's the square root of 2 times one of the legs, okay? That's a review. So we got two things to remember on a 30, 60, 90. Let's write this down. The first thing is the hypotenuse and the short leg, all right? So we start out with the hypotenuse, kind of like what we did before. Now, it's exactly twice the short leg. I'll just put short, okay? Hypotenuse is twice as big as the short leg. So what if the short leg was 4? What's the hypotenuse going to be? It's going to be 8. Very easy. You see that? What if the short leg was 6? What's the hypotenuse going to be? It's going to be 12. Okay, what if the short leg was 50? What's the hypotenuse going to be? It's going to be 100. Okay? Make sense? All right. So the hypotenuse is exactly twice as big as the short leg. Now, the long leg's a little different. The long leg is just a little bit smaller than the hypotenuse. Okay? Listen to me. Listen to me. I'm getting somewhere with this. The longer leg is just a little bit smaller than the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is 2. Or, what did we say 2 was? The square root of 4, right? So what is just a little bit smaller than the square root of 4? Square root of? What's just a little bit? Square root of 3. Square root of 3 is just a little bit smaller. Okay? So we're going to use the square root of 3 times, and they both relate to the short leg. All right? So equals square root of 3 times the short leg. So those are the two things to remember. I'm going to put them in a box here as soon as I get rid of that. This is what you need to remember. Write that down. It should be in your notes. Everybody should have this written down in your notes. And it should be in a notebook so you have easy access. You can go right to it and you can see this. This is super important right here. You got to know both of those. I will not write this on a quiz or a test. You have to have it memorized. Everybody got me on this? Okay. Let's do a couple examples with it, okay? So let's do another 30, 60, 90. And we're going to do 3. Well, we'll do 3 like this, okay? And that's 30, and that would be 60. All right, and you know which one has to be the long side, which one has to be the short side, which one has to be the hypotenuse. This is the hypotenuse because it's opposite the right angle. This is the short side because it's opposite the 30 degree. And of course, the other one would be the longer leg, longer of the two, right? Here's the easiest version of this problem. Everybody going to write this down? Aubrey, you writing this down? Here's the very easiest version of it. Just give me a length of a side. One we haven't used today. I don't know. I can't remember. Give me a length of the side. What's the length of that side? 5? Okay. So we'll say that's 5. I think we already used 5, but that's okay. So this is 5. And I asked you to find the other two sides. We'll call this X and Z. All right? Which one would you find first? Okay, you could. I would find the hypotenuse first. It doesn't matter. There's no right answer to that, okay? I was just curious. If it was me, I'd find the hypotenuse first. Why? It's an easy relationship because it's what? 5 times 2. That's right. It's 5 times 2. It's twice as big as the short side. So if I know the short side, the hypotenuse is just twice that. So what is it? It's 10. Easy. Do you agree? Actually, the X could be easier. No. Listen. Look at the formula. I didn't write it down. I mean, I don't have it here, but it was here. What is X? X is the longer side, isn't it? What is it? It's the square root of 3 times the shorter side. So what's the shorter leg right here? It's 5. So how do I find that? It's 5 times the square root of 3. Tell you what, let's write this down again. So what did we say the hypotenuse was? Twice the what? The short leg. What was the long side again? It's the square root of 3 times the what? Times the short leg again. See how they both have to deal with the short leg? So the short leg's what's really important, isn't it? To find the short leg, because then I can find the hypotenuse and then I can find the long side. Yeah? So look, let's find the long side right here. The long side, which was X, is equal to the square root of 3 times the what? The short leg. What was the short leg? 5. But we don't write it like this, do we? Okay, we don't write the whole number to the right, and we don't put the dot in the middle. The best way to write it is like this. 5 times the square root of 3. And that's why we wrote that answer the way we did. Does that make sense? That was the easiest way to do this. This was the easiest version of this. So let's do one that's just slightly a little more difficult. Not much, just slightly. I'll use that same thing. You can draw another triangle if you want. I'm going to get rid of this, get rid of this, get rid of that. I'll keep that there so we can use it for reference. What if I gave you, instead of the short side, if they give you the short side, the rest of them are super easy. All right. What if I gave you the hypotenuse? What if I said that that was 14? That's right. The short side is 7. Good. Because if I gave you the short side, you double it to get the hypotenuse. If I give you the hypotenuse, what do? Take half of it to get that. Do you agree?
And then square root of 3 times 7.
Okay. But write it. I wouldn't write square root of 3 times 7. What would I write? 7 times the square root of 3. Or you could just write 7 square root, or you could say 7 square root of 3. Yes. All right, just bear with me. We're going to get there, okay? That's a good question, all right, because that gets a little bit more complicated, all right? Everybody with that? With me on this? If they give you the hypotenuse, now what if, I'll just keep it like that. All right, now here's the one that's probably the most, well, the way I'm going to write it, it actually is a lot easier. What if I wrote this to be 6 square root of 3? What if I told you that side right there? Okay. That's right. So look, let's put it in here just so everybody sees it. Okay. What is the long leg? 6 square root of 3. And I want to find the short leg. We'll call it X. We'll call that Z. Okay. So I put it in this little formula. So I put in the long side, which is 6 square root of 3. What is this? Square root of 3 times the short side, which is x. Divide both sides by square root of 3. Look what happens. That cancels. X is 6. And that should make sense to you, right? Because if this was 6, how do I find the long side? It's just 6 square root of 3. If I told you this was 6 square root of 3, how do I find this one? I just divide by square root of 3. We good? All right. Now, this next one is a little bit tougher. What if I said that this was, we'll make it 8. And you got to find x and z. So which one, if I could talk, which one am I going to find first? Am I going to find the hypotenuse? I can't do the hypotenuse because I don't know the short side, correct? So I'm going to have to use this one right here. They give you the long side, right? And you got to find the short side. So that's the one that we're going to use. So what is the long side? No, the longer leg. Which one's the longer leg? It's 8. Equals what? Square root of 3 times the short. What's the short? No, the short. It's x. Look, this is the long. This is the short. Okay. All right, so 8 equals, right? 8's the long, equals square root of 3 times the short, which is x. With me? Solve for x. What do? Divide by square root of 3. Come over here and divide by square root of 3. These cancel. Look what I have. I got 8 over what? Square root of 3. What did we talk about, I don't know, 10 minutes ago?
Oh, you got to find the square root of 3.
You got it. You can't have a square root of 3 on the bottom, can you? So if you circle this, am I giving you credit for that? No, what am I saying after it? I'm saying simplify. So that's what we're going to do. Now watch. Look, dividing by the square root of 3, that wasn't hard at all, was it? Because you just write it, 8 over square root of 3. But now we have to do a little simplifying. This is probably the hardest part of the whole entire problem. All right, what do? Multiply it by top and bottom by square root of 3. That's right. Everybody see that? That's the key right there. Everybody awake? Writing this down? You should write it down. Why did I do that? Because that's going to get rid of the square root on the bottom. Because what's the square root of 3 times the square root of 3? It's just 3. Very good. Now you're catching on. Okay, square root of 3 times square root of 3 is just 3. How do I rewrite the top?
8 square root of 3.
You got it. Now, does anything else cancel here? No. This is not a 3. This is in a square root. This 3 will not cancel with that 3 because it's in a square root. Will that 3 cancel out with 8? No. So how do I write it? Just like that. That is simplified. Okay? That's the correct answer. It's just not simplified. Okay? We did the math right. We just have to simplify it and make it look like that. So the short side is what? 8 square root of 3 over 3. That's the hardest one that you're going to do out of all of these. Now we got to find z. It's really not that much more difficult. We know the short. How do I find the hypotenuse? Times 2. So can you multiply that by 2 in your head? So I multiply it by 2. 2 over 1. So what is that? Yep. 16, what? Square root of 3 over 3. So really all I did was multiply the 8 by a 2, right? And I just keep all the other stuff the way it was. So what's this answer right there? 16 square root of 3 over 3. So those are your two answers. That's z and that's x. They're weird looking answers. I get it. All right? I understand that. It looks strange, especially when you're not used to seeing this. But that is the exact simplified answer. That's exact and it's simplified. That's what you want. That's the kind of answers that I'm going to want on a quiz or a test. Everybody see this? All right? I want exact, simplified answers. So I'm telling you now, so when you get the quiz, you're like, yo, Mr. Hamrick, I did it right. I just didn't, I wrote this. That's right, I did everything right. Why can't you give me half credit? Well, on a quiz, I do give you half credit, don't I? Every single time? Yes. All right. Make sense? Let's do one more. We got 7 minutes left. I got plenty of time. Let's do this. By the way, does anybody remember what this chapter is all about? Like the title of this chapter? The chapter is called Hypotenuse. No, that's the section. What's the whole entire chapter? It's about area. Okay, remember that? Did area of a rectangle, area of a rhombus, and all that. Your last quiz was on that stuff. Okay, you also had area of a what? Of a what? Triangle. What is the area of a triangle? It's 180? No.
It's 90 degrees.
You guys are just throwing out geometry words, like just random geometry words. You're not thinking. Thank you. Raheem, tell me. Okay, times 1/2, that's right. Or you could say over 2, right? Either way is perfectly fine. Didn't I just have somebody leave? Who sits there? Okay, wait till he comes back. All right, so the area of a triangle is base times height divided by 2, correct? All right, so, oh, you know what? On that last class, we did this thing. I did not finish this problem. Oh, that's terrible. We were supposed to find the area, and I didn't do it. Anyway, that's okay. I'll talk to him about it tomorrow. Let's do this. I am going to draw. Oops, that's not what I wanted. There we go. And let's make this a triangle. Here's an equilateral triangle. Everybody hear me? We're not finished yet. What does that mean to be equilateral? You got it. All 3 sides are equal. So let's mark it. All right, so this side is equal to this side is equal to this side. What we're going to be doing, and I just realized we didn't do it in the last class, but I'm going to do it in here. We're going to find the area of this triangle. So what is the area? It's the base times the height divided by 2. All right? So where's the height of this triangle? It's from the top. Perpendicular. Very good. I love hearing that. Perpendicular to the bottom or the base. Right? Everybody hear me on that? So that red line right there is your what? Is your height. Is your height. And let's just make up a number. Let's say it's 5. I'm looking at my notes. All right, so let's say that's 5. So all 3 sides are 5. Everybody with me? This is where we put it all together. So let's watch what's going on. So if it's an equilateral triangle, tell me something about all 3 of those angles in the equilateral triangle. They're equal, okay? So what are they actually? They're all equal to each other. They all add up to 180. So if they're all equal to each other, listen, you're just throwing words out. Listen to me. Think first. Okay. If they all add up to 180, all right, and they're all the same, what are each of those angles?
60.
Okay, 60 degrees. Well, you are late, but you still got it. That's good. So that would be 60. That would be 60. And this whole angle right here would be 60, correct? We had another theorem, I'm not going to get into the details of it, but we had another theorem that said if these 2 sides are equal and this is perpendicular, what does that line do to that? It bisects it, that's right. So what's this little tiny angle right there? That would be 30 degrees. All right, so that's stuff that we already previously knew, all right? We're supposed to know anyway. So what kind of a triangle do I have right here? Yeah, I got a right triangle, and it's a 30, 60, 90 triangle, okay? That's what we're teaching this lesson today, okay? It's a 30, 60, 90 triangle. So, what do we know about this? Well, we know The what? The hypotenuse. So what could we find? Yeah, you could find the leg, but actually, remember what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to find the area of the whole thing. So I already know the whole base, don't I? Do I really need to know half of that? I don't. I mean, I can find it, just half. It's 2.5, right? So this is 2.5. Finding the height is what we really need to do, okay? So this is the longer leg, isn't it? So
all high school student ambassadors, please come to the lobby to talk to Mrs. Velez now. And just a couple updates on sports. Middle school soccer game has been canceled and no practice for middle school soccer today. Middle school baseball has no practice today. JV baseball has been canceled. Thank you.
all right, here we go. If this is 5, yeah, I guess we do need to know the short leg, now I think about it. You could say 2.5, or you could say it's 5 what? Over 2. All right, so from there to there is 5 over 2. How do I find the longer leg? This is h for height, not hypotenuse, okay? How do I find that? Take the square root of 3. Remember this? The long leg is equal to the square root of 3 times the short leg. What's the short leg? It's 5 over 2. So let's write it real nice. What would that be? 5 square root of 3 over 2. So that's what this long leg is right here. That's what your height is. Okay, so I'll write it down. 5 square root of 3 over 2. Now what are we trying to do though? We're trying to find the area. So what is the area equal to? The base times the height. What's the base of this triangle? It's 5, that's right. Times the height. What's the height of this triangle? 5. No, it's not 3 squared. It's the square root of 3 over 2. Okay? And that's over 1. So there's your base. There's your height. And then we're going to take half of that, correct? We're going to take all of that and divide it by 2. Let's do the top first. Let's multiply the top. What do we get? 5 times 5 is 25 over, I'm sorry, not over, but times the square root of 3 over 2. Now, you could divide by 2, or remember we could put a 1/2 in front of it. So watch this. What's half of this? This thing right here. 25 square root of 3 over 2 times 1/2. What do I do? Multiply the top. What do I get on the top? 25 times the square root of 3 over, what do I get on the bottom? Is it? 4. It's 2 times 2. Right there. You got a 2 and a 2. You multiply the top, multiply the bottom. Right there. That is your area. Now, I didn't give it any units, but let's say it was in inches. If this was in inches, what would area be? It'd be what? Inches what? Squared. Okay. That looks ugly, and you're like, well, that's a stupid number. But you could always put it into a calculator and get some decimal for it, okay? But that's your answer. Here's your homework. Your homework is section 7.4b. And let me get my notebook out here. No. We're turning it in tomorrow. So your homework is, but you're going to turn it in, okay? It's not like you're not going to turn it in. 4, 5, 6, 9, and 10. So 4, guys, 5, 6, 9, and 10. All right? These right here are all 30, 60, 90 triangles, okay? They're all 30, 60, 90s. I will collect the part A tomorrow. I'm going to collect them all at once. We're going to go over them together all at once. So have both of those done for tomorrow.